know the music, the suits, and the mission from God. But behind the scenes of the Blues Brothers lies a story that even superfans haven't heard. Until now. Fact 1. At the time of its release in 1980, the Blues Brothers set a new cinematic record by destroying 103 cars during production. Director John Landis wanted authentic, chaotic car chases, so he instructed the team to crash real vehicles. To do this, Universal bought dozens of retired police cars, mostly Dodge Monaco models. These were modified with reinforced suspensions and installed roll cages to survive repeated stunts. The production team also built a dedicated garage near Chicago to repair wrecked cars overnight. Each car was used, wrecked, and sometimes rebuilt multiple times. The infamous Lower Wacker Drive chase scene alone featured over 40 vehicles. At the time, this was considered one of the largest and most dangerous driving sequences in film history. Some cars were even launched through the air using hidden ramps and hydraulic cannons. Stunt drivers rehearsed for weeks to execute these precise maneuvers. Landis pushed for practical effects, refusing to use miniatures or camera tricks. The total car damage budget reportedly exceeded $3.5 million. Multiple intersections had to be shut down for filming with police escorts. In one scene, police cars pile up into an almost cartoonish mountain of wreckage, none of which was faked. The film's car carnage became legendary and influenced countless action movies. At the time, Universal was nervous about the cost, but ultimately embraced the spectacle. When the sequel Blues Brothers 2000 was made, it aimed to top this with 104 cars wrecked, purely for the new record. But the original still feels more raw and dangerous. Landis later said he wanted the chases to feel like a musical number with metal, and decades later, this film's crash record remains iconic. It's not just the music, it's the madness that made it unforgettable. Fact 2.
Wrong glass, sir.
Dan Aykroyd's original script for the Blues Brothers was enormous, clocking in at 324 pages. That's nearly 3 times the length of a typical shooting script. Aykroyd had never written a film before, so he didn't follow traditional screenwriting structure. Instead, he wrote it like a novel mixed with a band tour itinerary. The script included detailed histories of blues artists, technical descriptions of car chases, and long side plots. John Landis was hired not just to direct the film, but to condense and rewrite the massive manuscript. Landis reportedly referred to the original script as a phone book. It included scenes involving supernatural elements and music theory footnotes. Landis kept the core story, the band reunion and the mission from God, but rewrote almost everything else. He structured the movie into a 3-act format and introduced clearer motivations for the characters. Despite the massive rewrite, Landis respected Aykroyd's deep love for blues and left most of the musical content intact. Aykroyd remained closely involved in the editing process. He even created an in-universe backstory for every band member. This level of detail helped flesh out characters like Mr. Fabulous and Murph. Aykroyd's draft also included real addresses and neighborhoods in Chicago, showing his local knowledge. It was unusual for a comedy film to care so much about musical authenticity. Ultimately, Landis's edits helped turn a giant musical document into a coherent film. But without Aykroyd's obsessive draft, the movie wouldn't have had its rich blues foundation. His love for the genre shows in every scene. And it all started with a 300-page love letter to the blues. Fact 3.
First you trade the Cadillac for a microphone. Then you lie to me about the band. Now you're gonna put me right back in the joint.
The jaw-dropping indoor car chase was filmed at Dixie Square Mall, a real shopping mall in Harvey, Illinois. The mall had been closed for over a year before production started. Universal leased the space and restored it to working condition just for the film. They installed storefronts, mannequins, signage, and merchandise to make it look operational. Once everything was set up, they proceeded to demolish it with cars. The stunt team drove full-size police vehicles through escalators, kiosks, and plate glass windows. Filming inside the mall took several weeks and involved dozens of stunt drivers. The team built hidden ramps and reinforced parts of the structure for safety. Still, the property sustained severe structural damage during filming. After production wrapped, the mall sat abandoned again. It became a destination for urban explorers and film fans for decades. Despite local efforts, the mall was never reopened. It was finally demolished in 2012, over 30 years after the movie's release. Some elements of the set, like pieces of signage and storefronts, were salvaged by collectors. The scene remains one of the most famous mall sequences in film history. It influenced other movies, including Terminator 2 and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Fans continue to analyze the scene for its choreography and practical effects. No green screen or CGI was used. Everything you see really happened. The chaos was real, and so was the destruction. And that's what makes the mall chase so unforgettable. Fact 4.
I'll have some toasted white bread, please.
You want butter or jam on that toast, honey?
No, ma'am. Dry.
Aretha Franklin's powerful performance in the Think Diner scene is one of the film's most iconic moments. But what many fans don't know is that she had never acted in a movie before. Coming from a background in gospel and soul music, Franklin was accustomed to live performance. So when she was asked to lip sync to a pre-recorded track, she found it extremely difficult. The crew had to do multiple takes to get the synchronization just right. Franklin would slightly change the timing or emotion with each take. Her musical instincts clashed with the rigid nature of playback acting. Director John Landis reportedly gave her time and space to adjust to the process. Eventually, with patience and coaching, she delivered the final take used in the film. It became one of her most beloved screen appearances. The scene was shot at a real diner called Nate's Deli in Chicago, which has since closed. Franklin's costume was designed to resemble what a diner owner's wife might wear in the late 1970s. Her backup dancers were choreographed to keep the energy tight and complement her performance. Franklin did her own singing on the track, recorded before shooting. Despite her discomfort with acting, she received praise for her screen presence. The performance helped bridge the gap between soul music and mainstream cinema. Franklin later appeared in the sequel, Blues Brothers 2000, with more confidence. She said she enjoyed the experience more the second time. Still, her debut remains legendary, and it proved that even a queen of soul could light up the silver screen. Fact 5. The Blues Brothers didn't originate on the big screen. They began as a musical act on Saturday Night Live. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi developed the characters during downtime at SNL in the mid-1970s. Aykroyd was a genuine blues aficionado and frequently DJ'd at a bar he co-owned. He introduced Belushi to the genre, who became equally passionate. Their first performance as Jake and Elwood Blues aired on SNL in 1978, backed by real musicians. The performance was so well received that Atlantic Records signed them to a recording contract. Their debut album, Briefcase Full of Blues, went double platinum. It reached #1, won on the Billboard charts, and outsold many mainstream rock albums that year. This success convinced Universal that a movie could work. So when the film went into production, they already had a loyal fan base. The movie wasn't a gamble, it was a calculated extension of a growing brand. Aykroyd and Belushi took their act seriously, never treating it as parody. They respected the music and hired some of the best musicians in the business. The band included Steve Cropper and Donald Duck Dunn from Booker T and the MGs. The musical performances were all real, no miming or overdubs. This foundation helped the movie feel grounded in authentic blues tradition. The Blues Brothers weren't a joke. They were a fully functioning band with tours, albums, and a mission. A mission from God, no less. Fact 6. James Brown appears in the Blues Brothers as the electrifying Reverend Cleophas James. He performs during the gospel church scene, leading a rousing rendition of The Old Landmark. But what many viewers don't realize is that Brown had never lip-synced in a movie before. He was a live performer through and through, famous for his spontaneous, soul-driven stage energy. The production required him to sync with a pre-recorded track, which was standard for musical numbers in films. Brown found it difficult to match the playback due to his tendency to improvise rhythms and lyrics. It took multiple takes to get the footage the director needed. The scene was shot in Pilgrim Baptist Church in Chicago, with real extras acting as the congregation. The energy was so contagious that even crew members clapped along between takes. Brown's flashy blue robes and dance steps were choreographed to mirror his real-life concerts. He wore custom shoes to allow for his signature spins. The choir, led by gospel singer Chaka Khan in an uncredited role, was recorded separately. Brown's vocals were pre-recorded in a studio and played back on set via loudspeakers. To aid with syncing, Brown rehearsed with a metronome to internalize the track's exact pacing. Director John Landis wanted the number to feel like a revival and not a stage performance. The crowd reactions were largely genuine, and several takes captured spontaneous dancing. Brown's commitment paid off. His performance became one of the film's musical highlights. Despite his struggles with the format, Brown was proud of the final result. He even referenced the movie years later in interviews about his crossover into film. This marked one of his first major Hollywood appearances. It paved the way for more musicians to appear in major motion pictures, and it helped solidify the Blues Brothers as a celebration of American music legends. Fact 7.
This car. This stupid car.
The Bluesmobile, a battered 1974 Dodge Monaco, became just as iconic as the characters themselves. The production team used a fleet of 13 identical Monacos during filming, each customized for specific stunts. One was rigged to jump bridges. Another was designed for high-speed driving. Some had reinforced frames, while others were gutted to reduce weight. Real stunt drivers operated them during the wildest chase scenes. In total, over 60 retired police cars were purchased to serve as both Bluesmobiles and cop cars. One of the Monacos was equipped with a high-performance engine from a police interceptor. This allowed it to reach speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour during filming. The famous bridge jump scene was shot using a hidden ramp and a massive counterweight system. The film also includes a moment where the Bluesmobile does a backflip spin in a parking lot, done with cables and precision driving. The production team worked with experienced stunt coordinators to keep drivers safe. A few cars were so damaged after filming that they were immediately scrapped. Others were repurposed for promotional events. Universal kept one of the stunt Bluesmobiles in its studio lot for years. Fans still recreate the car, with dozens of replicas spotted at car shows and conventions. The Bluesmobile is considered one of the most recognizable movie vehicles in history. It was chosen partly for budget reasons, but also because it looked tough and fast. Dan Aykroyd even gave it a fictional backstory in the script, claiming it had cop shocks, cop tires, cop suspension. That monologue became one of the most quoted lines in the film, and it reflected the real effort that went into making the Bluesmobile a true stunt machine. Fact 8. Carrie Fisher plays a mysterious, unnamed woman in the Blues Brothers who repeatedly tries to assassinate Jake with military-grade weapons. Her character never speaks until the very end of the film. She uses flamethrowers, machine guns, and even a rocket launcher in her attempts to kill him. What many fans don't know is that Fisher and Belushi had been friends and briefly romantically involved before filming. Their past dynamic informed the strange and volatile relationship on screen. Dan Aykroyd was actually dating Fisher at the time of production. He later proposed to her after the Heimlich maneuver saved her life on set. Fisher embraced the chance to play a woman scorned and brought her own humor to the role. The flamethrower scene was filmed on a set with strict fire safety protocols. The rocket launcher sequence was done with practical effects and miniature models. Fisher was trained on how to safely handle the prop weapons. Director John Landis deliberately gave her no backstory, calling her the mystery woman in the script. Fisher loved the ambiguity and exaggerated tone. She later said in interviews that it was one of the most fun roles of her career. The bazooka she uses was modeled after a real military launcher, but modified for safety. No digital effects were used. Everything was done with physical props and pyrotechnics. Her trench coat and heels became an unlikely symbol of female fury in cinema. Although her screen time is brief, Fisher's performance left a lasting impression. Fans still debate her character's origin to this day, and Fisher herself preferred not to explain it. She liked keeping the mystery alive. Fact 9. The grand finale chase scene featuring dozens of police cars barreling through downtown Chicago, required massive coordination with city officials. Director John Landis obtained permission to shut down major streets, including Lower Wacker Drive and Daley Plaza. This was highly unusual at the time for a comedy film. Chicago Mayor Jane Byrne supported the production, hoping it would showcase the city in a positive light. The city provided police escorts and traffic rerouting assistance. Filming took place mostly on weekends to minimize disruption. Even so, some businesses and commuters were affected. The chase involved over 40 stunt drivers, each with a mapped-out route and timing. Cars sped through real City Hall corridors, government buildings, and even elevators. The building used for the final scene was Chicago's Richard J. Daley Center. Inside, Belushi and Aykroyd filmed scenes after hours, with limited crew to avoid damaging property. The final car crash in the building's lobby was done with removable glass panels and reinforced flooring. In total, the city granted over 50 individual filming permits for street closures and aerial shots. A helicopter was used for bird's-eye views of the chase, requiring FAA clearance. City workers reportedly watched from rooftops during filming breaks. Local press covered the chaos, with some headlines calling it a musical movie with traffic mayhem. The studio paid for all damages and cleanup. In exchange, the city got a prominent feature in a major motion picture. The scene has since become one of the most iconic car chases ever filmed in a real urban environment, and it cemented Chicago's place as a city that could host major film productions. Fact 10. When the Blues Brothers hit theaters in 1980, it didn't just entertain. It helped revitalize the careers of several legendary black musicians. Artists like Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Ray Charles, and Cab Calloway had seen declining mainstream visibility in the late 70s. The film introduced their music to a new generation. Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi insisted on casting real artists, not actors, to perform the musical numbers. Atlantic Records re-released old singles and albums by the featured artists. Ray Charles's rendition of Shake a Tail Feather became a renewed radio hit. Aretha Franklin experienced a boost in sales for her catalog. Cab Calloway, known best for his 1930s swing-era work, saw a comeback thanks to his Minnie the Moocher performance. The film also led to a concert tour by the Blues Brothers Band, which included real-life session legends. These musicians performed both movie songs and classic blues standards. Merchandise sales and soundtrack royalties brought income to the artists featured. For some, it was their first time performing for younger, multiracial crowds. The movie soundtrack went double platinum. Its success proved that soul and blues music still had mainstream appeal. Some of the performers even credited the movie with helping them book new shows. The film is now studied in music history classes as an example of cross-cultural revival. Aykroyd later co-founded the House of Blues, continuing the mission. And thanks to the film's influence, these musical icons reached new heights in the 1980s. It wasn't just a movie, it was a second act.